Welcome back. Welcome back to Living in Mexico. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us this weekend. There was interesting headlines this week regarding the United States announcing additional sanctions to individuals that are linked to, in this case, one particular criminal organization, Jalisco Nueva Generación, uh, but not because of their trafficking of drugs. In this case, which I thought was very interesting, the sanctions have to do, Treasury has this sanction system, which looks to block assets and prohibit transactions involving individuals or entities that pose a threat to the United States, national security, foreign policy, or the economy. So, but what's interesting about these new sanctions, it has to do with individuals, this cartel, that use timeshare fraud against US citizens. And this has been a story that has been, it's an interesting story that has been kind of, there had been some headlines a couple of years ago, and then more recently, there was an enormous amount of interest as more and more Americans were being defrauded by individuals in Mexico and apparently also in the United States who are linked with this cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación. That basically it seemed it's a way of defrauding individuals. Because and why would they go into this timeshares fraud? It has to do with there's a they saw that there's a high steady cash flow. It carries very low operational risk for these criminal organizations, exploits UX victims who may know or may be unfamiliar with Mexican real estate laws, and it's been running from different hubs around the country. One particular hub is Puerto Vallarta, which is, as you know, it's in the state of Jalisco. It's where this cartel has its presence. Well, joining us today is a victim of these of this fraud scheme. Ken Wagner, he's out of Utah. He's joining us. And Ken, I mean, you've lived in Mexico. You were born in Mexico, and then you've lived, for most of your life in Hawaii, and you're a very well known and recognized coach, athletic director of universities, different universities in different parts of the world. And you had, just tell us your story so we can understand how this happened. Because my understanding is you did not necessarily have a timeshare. You had another property or different other ways of buying property, which is called the fractional ownership. But you were still defrauded by these organizations. So just walk us through what happened. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Living in Mexico.
Well, thank you. Well, we loved going back to Mexico, and so we purchased, as you mentioned, a fractional ownership with Vidanta. And the way it started, people started calling us, asking if they could rent from us. We thought, how on earth did they know that we even have this property?
Mhm.
And they did that for several years, and we never did. And then a couple of years ago, they called and said, "Oh, we need rooms for, the golf open tournament they have there, for the fishing tournament in Cabo. Can we rent some of your apartment or your owner or fractional ownership?" And we said, we thought about it, and we thought, well, I guess we can rent and it would be fine. And they offered good money for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they started going, they said, "Oh, you own another really nice property with this same group. We'll buy it from you." And they offered us, the money. And we looked at it and we thought, oh, the escrow company is here in the United States, the real estate companies here. So that should make it a little bit safer. And as we found out later on, I think there are escrow companies and real estate companies around the US that are working closely with people in Mexico
Mhm.
and not the resorts necessarily, but with the attorneys and people in high positions in government that
Mhm.
have the influence to get paperwork because they said, "Oh, we'll pay you a lot." And we said, thought about it, and we said, "Well, I guess that's a good opportunity." Then they send you a letter and say, "Oh, we have to take $200,000 for taxes. Oh, we
Mhm.
need, this."
It,
And they go on with the list. Oh, it's by the ocean. And I
mhm.
said, well, I'm a Mexican. I really don't, need that. And they had already, put it in. But just to make it short, they take advantage of you. They even said, oh, this insurance guarantees it. And they have letters from the Comisión Nacional Bancaria y de Valores. They
Mhm.
had paperwork from banks,
Mhm.
paperwork from the insurance company with people signing it and saying,
So it
we,
looks like the real deal, basically.
yeah, because it's coming. I thought, well, no one that's head of the bank is going to sign that or
Right.
insurance company.
Mhm.
But basically, they just defraud you. And at the end, they say, oh, well, we're going to give it to you, but you have to pay, another 280 or 300 or, and, we got to the point, just said no. But by then, we had lost money. And I'm sure that's how most of the people were.
Mhm. And the
And so
property, you still have the property, right?
we
The
do
property, right?
because we weren't going to sign it over, no matter all the paperwork if they didn't pay us. And
Mhm.
yet, then it makes it a lot more, it's a big hit to lose that much money.
Mhm.
And so it's been a tough thing for us.
Now, this fraud apparently has been going on for years now because I heard from other Americans who had kind of contacted me, and I was somewhat surprised because, as you know, these companies like Vidanta and all these companies are highly respected companies in Mexico, and they have huge, they have a lot of business with Americans. I mean, how do you? I mean, what options do you have at this point, or what are you going to do?
Well, I think the options we have right now, we started working with the FBI right
Mm-hmm.
when it happened, but I think in just like a lot of organizations, they switched people and,
Mm-hmm.
to try and explain everything all over again and give them all the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one was really knowledgeable about this type of thing. And yet they moved him immediately to another position. And then, so I called a friend of mine in Mexico and said, hey, will you help us? And so he has, and they're working with the Mexican government and the American government. And
Mm-hmm.
so hopefully, someone will have to pay a little bit for what happened. And, uh, the biggest thing I would say is, as I mentioned to you, they have the ability to go to different organizations and get, paperwork that looks the same and,
Mm-hmm.
copy someone's name that's in a position. So I would check real carefully with your company that you bought from because Vedanta, I'm sure would have helped us tremendously, but it was our fault. We should have talked to them sooner because
Mm-hmm.
afterwards other people offered us, some things and we called them and they said would been sent on their, the information on their um, paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, that's not us, even
Mm-hmm.
though it had all their designs and
Mm-hmm.
things. And so
The
I think
letterheads,
it's
yeah.
a huge
Mm-hmm.
problem. And, I thought, man, it's terrible. People say, oh, you have to worry about Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, you have to worry more probably about the ones in the US starting it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, get
See,
it in escrow.
that's what's so interesting about this case is that there actually it has a U.S. presence. This fraud has a U.S. presence. It's using the U.S. banking system basically to defraud people, and and there's businesses in the United States that are basically supporting this scam by uh, what is now considered terrorist groups in Mexico, because that's how the U.S. Treasury views these El Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación. So technically, who's ever behind this in the United States is also going to be in a lot of trouble, Ken.
No, I believe that. And I think there were a lot of attorneys that, um, are working with these same groups that should be in a lot of trouble too.
Ken Wagner, I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I really appreciate you joining us and kind of warning people about this scam that became now very, very public thanks to the Treasury Department's OFAC list that they use these what's called the IEPA sanctions against individuals who are linked to criminal organizations that are now considered terrorist by the U.S. government. But now the U.S. is not going after them, not only because of their trafficking of drugs to the United States and violence in Mexico, but they're also going after them because of these types of frauds. I really appreciate you joining us, Ken.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you, making it common knowledge so people don't get scammed because it isn't fun.
It isn't fun. Ken Wagner from Utah. He's a retired coach. He was athletic director of a couple of universities. He Mexican, went to the American school here in the in Mexico City. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Nice meeting you. Thank you very much.
We're going to go to commercial break. I'm Ana Maria Salazar, and thank you so much for joining us